Hello, I'm Caitlin, and you won't believe what happened at Christmas dinner. My sister read a poem calling me the useless one in front of everyone. I sat there silent until I finally decided to speak up. But what I revealed shook them all to the core. You won't expect the truth I had to share. Hook 2. My family made me feel invisible for years. They treated me like a ghost at every holiday, just waiting for me to disappear. But that night, I refused to stay silent anymore. I had the receipts, the proof. They thought they could keep me down forever. But that night, everything changed. The driveway was just as I remembered. Long, curved, too clean. The kind of clean that says, we care what neighbors think. Not, we want you to feel at home. I stepped out of the rental car and took a breath that didn't reach my lungs. The cold hit hard. New Jersey winters have a way of reminding you where the warmth never was. The front door opened before I could knock. Angelica stood there, her smile pulled tight like a ribbon around a gift you know was re-gifted. "Caitlin," she said. Just that. No hug, no warmth, just a name passed like a tray of hors d'oeuvres. Inside, the house smelled of pine and expensive candles, eucalyptus probably. Nothing of cinnamon or butter or anything that suggested comfort. The chandelier still hung too low in the entryway, and the wallpaper was the same off-white with gold detailing, timeless because no one dared change it. I walked into the dining room, eyes scanning for the usual. There it was, the long table set in white and silver. 8 seats. One had a folded card with "seat available" written in perfect script. No name, no welcome, just a vacancy. I looked up and caught Dad adjusting his tie in the hallway mirror, pretending not to see me. Mom was fussing with the roast, but her eyes flicked up just long enough to confirm I'd seen the note. Silent messages delivered with the precision of a scalpel. I said nothing, just nodded, sat down in the seat, available. Like a guest at my own funeral. Dinner prep buzzed in the background. Angelica talked about her nonprofit gala last week. Blake chuckled at his own joke, something about donor dinners being the new Tinder for tax write-offs. I watched him swirl his wine like he owned the vineyard. His smile never reached his eyes. Flashback hit fast. Christmas 5 years ago. I'd asked Mom if she'd read my college essay. She said, "I'm sure it's lovely." Then turned away. That night ended in a slammed door, mine. No one ever brought it up again. Not even once. I brought a bottle of homemade red, something I'd aged 2 years. Placed it gently on the counter. "Thought this might be fun," I said. "Oh," Blake said, eyeing it. "We already opened a French Pinot." The kind of smile that tells you you're late, even when you're early. "Of course," I replied, brushing non-existent lint off my sleeve. "Better keep things classic." I folded my napkin into a swan. Old habit. When I was 10, I'd do it every holiday, pretending the table was a pond and we were all just floating, not drowning. My niece, Emma, reached across the table. "It's pretty," she whispered. Angelica leaned over, plucked the swan away, refolded it into a flat rectangle. "Let's not make it a craft fair tonight." Her voice sweet as syrup, but cut sharper than any knife on that table. I smiled. I always smiled. But inside, I felt that tiny snap. Not the napkin, not the fold. It was the ease with which she erased me, the comfort she had in doing it. And they sat me near the kitchen, again. The swinging door smacked behind my chair every few minutes. "Easy access for more wine runs," Blake said, raising his glass. Everyone chuckled. Even me. Not because it was funny, because I was trained to. I used to think if I took up less space, I'd be invited in, I thought, fingers curling around the cold stem of my glass. Turns out, the smaller I got, the easier I was to ignore. Angelica tapped her spoon against her wine glass, that attention-demanding chime that always meant something rehearsed. "Before dinner," she said, "I've written a little something for the family, a tradition we've let slip, and I thought, why not bring it back?" Cheers, clinks, smiles all around. Except me. My stomach curled in on itself. I caught Mom's gaze. A cold, polished look, like she was waiting for the wreck. Angelica unfolded the paper with care, like it was a sacred text. I braced, not because I didn't know what was coming, but because I did. Angelica cleared her throat the way a stage actor might before the big monologue. One hand lightly touched her wineglass stem, like it was a microphone. She gave the room a look, a silent demand for attention, then smiled. "I call this," she said, pausing for effect, "an ode to the ones who never quite made it. A tribute, really." I felt the stillness settle over the table like fog. Forks froze midair. Mom gave a polite smile, the kind that says, "Go on, dear." I sat upright, unsure if I should brace for impact or pretend indifference. Then she began. "To the silent architects of missed potential, to the hands that set the table, but never dine, to the frame in the family photo, slightly blurred, always behind." The words floated out soft, poetic even, vague enough to seem harmless, like background noise at a dinner party. But I knew, I felt it in my teeth. Blake smirked halfway through his sip. My cousin Ethan blinked a little too fast. Angelica's voice carried over the crystal glasses and roasted duck like she was reading scripture. "To the one who offers crumbs with pride and mistakes silence for grace." A ripple of restrained chuckles drifted down the table. Dad stared at his plate. I tried to hold my breath, but my lungs wouldn't listen. My ears burned. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe this was just art. But then, to the echo who mistook background noise for belonging, who brings gifts no one asked for and arrives when the story's already told. That one landed. I sat still, didn't blink, didn't swallow. My face was blank, but inside, everything moved. To the helper who shows up late, but always with a story, who rewrites memory to feel necessary, who takes the stage in her mind and calls it family. The spoon in my hand trembled slightly. I set it down. Blake leaned back, chuckling. This is getting good, like he was watching a roast on cable. No one stopped her. No one said, "That's enough." Because this was the family way. Dress the knife in ribbons and applaud the blood it draws. There was one line that ripped something loose in me. She once said, "All I wanted was to be seen." So here she is, seen, at last. That wasn't a memory, that was a twist of one. The words came from an argument years ago, twisted now to make me look like I was begging for spotlight instead of air. They all laughed, politely, nervously, except Mom, who lifted her glass and said, "To the truth in art." And Blake added, "Well, someone had to say it." Someone, of course. A cousin I hadn't seen in years leaned toward me. "You okay?" she whispered. I turned my head slightly. "Sure," I said. But that wasn't concern in her eyes. That was relief. It wasn't about her. Then silence again. Angelica set the paper down like it deserved a frame. Someone clapped. I think it was Aunt Debbie. My throat felt lined with gravel, but I didn't leave. I watched the dessert come out, lemon tart with sugared cranberries. I forced a smile, thanked the housekeeper who set it down, and folded my napkin. Not into a swan this time, but into a sharp, deliberate triangle. Precise edges, clean lines. No one noticed. And that's when it shifted. I didn't feel like crying. I didn't feel broken. I felt awake. They want a victim. I thought. I'll give them a mirror instead. So I sat, ate the tart, let them pretend everything was fine. That night, I didn't cry, but I did make a list. I woke to the sound of wind brushing against the cheap vinyl siding of the Airbnb. For a second, I didn't know where I was. Then the weight came back. Last night's performance, Angelica's smug voice, the hollow clapping, my mother's glass raised like it was Holy Communion. My body felt like it had been holding tension all night, like I'd clenched through sleep. My back ached. I sat up slowly, trying to gather myself, eyes scanning the dim morning light bleeding through beige curtains. The phone buzzed. Missed calls. One from Julia, my coworker. One from an unknown number. Probably spam, I thought. I got up, wrapped a throw blanket over my shoulders, and made my way to the kitchenette. Everything smelled like cold and old furniture. I boiled water, cracked eggs, tried to act like someone having a normal morning. When I reached for the coffee jar, I knocked it over. Grounds scattered across the counter like dirt over a grave. I stared at the mess. It looked like me, shattered, unnoticed, already staining. I didn't cry. I just started wiping. Later, after the eggs had gone cold, I remembered the unknown number and hit play. At first, silence, then a laugh. Angelica's. That pitchy, theatrical laugh she always used when she was trying to perform intimacy with people she actually disdained. Then Mom's voice. Well, I thought she was going to cry right there at the table. Angelica. She always does that, acts like she's holding it together. Emotional constipation. They both laughed. Another voice, male, Blake. She should be grateful we even let her sit at the table. The message cut off. I stood there, phone in hand, replaying it again. And again. 3 times. Not because I didn't get it. Because some part of me, stubborn, stupid, wanted to believe I'd misheard. That it was out of context. That I was wrong. But I wasn't. I sat down at the edge of the small pull-out sofa and stared at the screen. A piece of glass and plastic had just confirmed what decades of subtle cruelty had only implied. They hadn't just excluded me. They had rehearsed it, laughed about it, told jokes behind the curtain. I was back behind the staircase again. 11 years old, listening to them talk about me like I wasn't real. That time, I remember Blake saying, "She's too quiet, it's creepy." And Angelica saying, "She's just weird, like, try hard weird." That night, I told myself it was childhood stuff, that they'd grow up, that I did grow up. I just didn't get any harder to hurt. Back then, I thought growing up would make me bulletproof, I whispered. Turns out it just makes the knives sharper. The phone was still in my hand. I stared at it a long time, not moving, not crying, just breathing slow, like my chest forgot how. Then I stood up and started cleaning, not gently, not thoughtfully. I scrubbed the sink like it had insulted me, wiped every counter. Folded the blanket again and again until the corners matched perfectly. It wasn't about tidiness, it was about control. When I stopped, I pulled out my journal and flipped to a blank page. At the top I wrote, "The things I let slide." Then, one by one. When they forgot my promotion. When Blake told his wife I was unstable. When Mom said therapy was a white people thing. When Angelica said I'd be a great aunt, but not a mother. The list got longer, my handwriting sharper. Each line felt like a stitch pulled tight, not angry, just focused. I stared at the voicemail one more time, then deleted it. Not because it didn't matter, but because I didn't need proof anymore. Truth doesn't need receipts. Their voices already live in my memory, rent-free for too long. I pulled out another sheet of paper, this time not for a list, a seating chart, not for a dinner table, for my life. Who still got a seat? Who didn't? Who never deserved one in the first place? You don't keep poison just because it came in a pretty bottle, I thought. I wasn't planning to go back to the house, but fate didn't ask me. I woke before the alarm, not that I'd slept much. The sun was just brushing through the blinds, casting lines across the ceiling like a prison cell. My apartment was still, silent, except for the hum of the fridge. A peace that didn't match the noise still crawling around inside me from the night before. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the sketch pad on my nightstand. Open to the tablescape designs I'd mocked up for Christmas dinner. Candle heights, centerpiece flow, even lighting temperature notes. Stuff no one cared to ask about. Nobody mentioned them. Nobody ever did. And yet they used them. A line floated up in my brain, one I'd read months ago on a Pinterest quote board of all places. You are allowed to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress. Sophia Bush, I think. It stuck, because that's exactly where I stood. I wasn't broken, but I was done being invisible. I got up, wrapped myself in my robe, walked straight to the dining table where my laptop still sat. Open tabs, invoices, photos, timelines, florist notes, evidence, proof. Not that I needed proof, but I wasn't showing up empty-handed anymore. I started pulling files into a folder, drafting what I'd say if I got 2 uninterrupted minutes with Angelica. With Mom, Lois called. You should record it this time, she said. Not for revenge, just clarity, for yourself. I didn't answer right away. She added, and maybe make an announcement. Flip the script. The thought made my stomach twist. Exposure never came easy for me. I was good at background roles, safer there, but safe hadn't served me. After the call, I stood in front of the mirror, practiced the words like they were lines in a courtroom. I matter. I built this too. Again. I matter. I built this too. I didn't sound angry. I sounded clear. By afternoon, I was packed. It took just under an hour to get back to the estate. The snow had started to fall in lazy spirals, soft but unrelenting, the kind that made the world look peaceful even when it wasn't. I pulled up to the heated driveway, same as always, their perfect little winter postcard, same driveway where I used to shovel with my dad, where Mom used to say I had strong arms for a girl. I stepped out slowly, breath visible, heart tight but steady. The front door loomed like a stage curtain. Through the window, I saw Angelica bending over a flower arrangement, fussing with eucalyptus. Mom nearby, adjusting the place settings with surgical precision. They didn't notice me yet. I paused and remembered the Christmas I wrapped Mom's gift when I was 10. A little perfume bottle Dad forgot to wrap. I tied the ribbon myself. She praised the bow, never asked what was inside. That was the rhythm of this house. Praise the surface, ignore the soul. I walked in. Dinner started slow, civil, same wine, same hollow chatter. I was seated near the end again, but not near the kitchen this time. When Angelica raised her glass, she smiled thin. It's amazing how everything always looks so polished, isn't it? All thanks to someone behind the scenes. Laughter. Not cruel, just complicity. But this time, I didn't laugh. I placed my glass down, slow. Actually, Angelica, I said, calm but firm. I selected the floral design. I sourced these napkins. I even negotiated the price on the tablecloth. The room hushed. Mom's eyes flicked up. Blake shifted, cleared his throat. Nobody spoke, but everybody heard me. And for once, I let the silence work for me. I didn't shrink into it. I stood inside it. Angelica blinked. Her face flushed, but she said nothing. And just as I started to continue, Blake, in his usual graceful style, elbowed the candle beside him. It toppled, landing onto a napkin, a flicker, then flame. People jumped up. Mom gasped. Angelica yelled for water. Chaos bloomed across the table, and in that chaos I saw it. The crack, the fracture. Blazing flames answered questions I hadn't yet asked. The flame licked the edge of the table runner, fast, bright, alive. Blake jumped back, nearly knocking over his chair. "Whoa!" Angelica shrieked. "Not the linens!" No one moved. I did. I grabbed the water pitcher, cold and full, and dumped it right over the blaze. A hiss. Smoke. The table steamed like a fresh wound. It smelled like wax and burned fabric and something else I couldn't name. Something older. Everyone froze. No clapping. No thank you. No breath of relief. Angelica narrowed her eyes. That was unnecessary. I didn't respond. Not yet. Because that moment, drenched napkins, scorched centerpiece, the room trying to pretend like it was all fine, that moment cracked something wide open in me. That's how it always was. I cleaned up. They complained about how. I stared at the black mark spreading across the ivory cloth. It wasn't just a fire. It was everything. Years of pretending, being careful, holding my tongue so they'd hold their peace. But silence costs. And I had overpaid. The last time we were all together like this, I remember whispering a warning to Mom, something like, "I don't know how much longer I can play along." She had patted my hand, smiled, asked me to pass the cranberry sauce. Back then I had hoped. Now I was done hoping. "The thing about being quiet too long," I said, standing slowly, voice even, "is that when you finally speak, it echoes like thunder." Nobody stopped me. I looked at Angelica first, then Mom. "There's nothing more pathetic than a martyr who thinks she's owed," I said, reciting it just as I'd heard it on the voicemail. Their heads turned like deer spotting headlights. Mom sat straighter. Blake blinked. I could hear his glass hit the table too hard. "And if being helpful makes me useless," I continued, "then I'm done helping." I let my hands fall to my sides. Steady, calm. "Push me one more time," I said, "and you'll meet the version of me I was too polite to show." There it was. No more folding napkins to avoid folding myself in half. No more shrinking. Angelica scoffed, threw down her napkin like it had insulted her. "Always makes it about her," she muttered, storming off toward the kitchen. Mom's bottom lip quivered. "We were having a lovely dinner," she said through tears. "Why do you have to ruin it?" Blake, already 2 drinks in, poured himself another. "Here we go again," he mumbled, not to me, not to anyone, just to fill the air. Tina, my youngest cousin, leaned over, her voice barely above a whisper. "Are you okay?" I smiled, faint but real. "I think I just got oxygen for the first time in decades." She didn't respond, but she didn't look away either. I stepped outside. Cold air smacked my face like truth. My breath fogged up fast, as if even my lungs were confused by the freedom. My hands were still trembling, not from fear, but release. My phone buzzed, a message from Tina. "Thank you." "I didn't know you were strong like that," I typed back. "Neither did I." I turned to go back inside to grab my coat, but paused. Through the window near the side porch, I saw Angelica, phone in hand, 1 foot tapping, her voice hushed but unmistakable. Laughter. Then, words I didn't need her to repeat. "Don't worry, she's only dangerous to herself." This time, I didn't walk away. My phone buzzed before the sun was fully up, First, one notification, then five, then more than I could count. Tags, mentions, shares, messages from people I hadn't spoken to since high school. The night before, I'd left the family dinner without saying another word. I needed air. Needed to feel something colder than the silence they left in me. I didn't think anyone was recording. I certainly didn't expect the internet to wake up before I did. Lois had sent me a screenshot. A family friend had posted a video, a clip of me standing up at the dinner table, calmly delivering every line I'd rehearsed in my head for years. The caption read, "Finally, someone said it." The comments were split. Some applauded me. She held it together better than I would. Takes guts to stand up to family like that. Others were uglier. Why ruin a holiday just to play victim? Attention-seeking much? I sat on the edge of the bed, the screen's glow painting my face with all the things I never meant to be public. I didn't cry, not then. But my chest tightened, sharp and sudden, like grief you didn't prepare for. Still, somewhere inside all that, beneath the embarrassment, the anger, was a flicker. Pride. I got up, dressed, and walked 3 blocks to the cafe down the street. They knew me there. A woman with a quiet order and a pen always in hand. I sat in the corner, back to the window, and stirred my coffee even though I didn't add cream. People were scrolling their phones. A teenager near the front gasped, then whispered something to her friend. "That's her, from that architecture piece last year." No one approached me, but I felt their eyes, curious, assessing. I pulled out my journal and wrote, "I didn't expect truth to taste this bitter." The words by Dr. King came to mind. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. I had spent most of my adult life whispering my truth so as not to disrupt theirs. Back at my apartment, I'd barely taken off my coat when another ding rang out. Group text. "Mom, what you said last night was calculated and rude. You humiliated your sister." Then another. Angelica had posted a video, long, polished, dramatic. She spoke about family values and protecting peace, then called me out without naming me. Sometimes, when people don't get the attention they want, they stir the pot to feel relevant. They rewrote the script as I watched. People shared her post, liked it, commented with prayer emojis and hearts. A few mutual friends messaged me privately saying, "Just thinking of you." But publicly? Silence. That's when it hit me. Control isn't real when everyone else is holding a microphone. I opened my laptop. Screenshots, design contracts, time-stamped emails, mock-ups, texts thanking me, then turning around and giving credit to someone else. Years of work. All there. Lois came over within the hour. We sat side by side at my kitchen table, organizing files, choosing our words carefully. "If you're going to post," she said, "you need to make it airtight." "I'm not trying to win a war," I said. "I just want the truth out there." We drafted a caption. "This isn't revenge, it's documentation." By the time we hit publish, my hands were steady. The post included photos of event designs, email threads confirming my role, and screen recordings showing edits that removed my name. I sent a separate file to the local community newsletter, the one Angelica's sponsorship committee used every holiday season. Then I turned off notifications. I needed a break from watching people vote on my truth. That night, messages poured in. Old clients, colleagues, a few cousins I barely saw anymore. Some apologized. Some just said, "We see you." Angelica. She raged, posted a story calling me unwell, said I was tearing down what our family built. Mom stayed silent until one message showed up from a journalist. Subject line, "Transparency and sponsorship. A developing story. Body. We've been following your post. Would you be willing to speak about family influence and transparency? I closed the laptop slowly. The silence around me didn't feel peaceful. It felt loud, like a warning. I stared out the window. I hadn't meant to start a fire. But sometimes, telling the truth doesn't just light a spark. It burns through every shadow trying to keep it hidden. I drove up the long driveway just as dusk swallowed the sky. Snowflakes drifted slow and soft, like silent memories falling. The house lights glowed warm behind frost-tipped windows, but stepping inside felt colder than the cold outside. The weight of last night's truth hit me again. Every Christmas past, every tiny erasure, every time I was told I wasn't seen, it all circled in the air. Angelica opened the door, her smile strained. Mom followed, polite, distant. I felt eyes sweep over me, trying to judge who I was now, not who I used to be. And there it was on the table, a napkin swan, folded, pristine, sitting at my place, the one I made years ago, the one she always replaced. My throat tightened. They wanted the image of me, graceful, decorative, replaceable. Dinner started. The room warmed by candlelight. Angelica rose with a glass in hand. "Family is what holds us together," she said, voice light but sharp beneath. She smiled through it. Used words like together and unity. It stung like she was quoting from someone else's poem. I stood, my heart pounding, but my voice steady. I looked at Mom, then at Angelica. "I want to be clear about what's real," I said. "All those times you praised the ribbon, Angelica, while ignoring the gift inside. Yes, I was the gift, and no one asked." Eyes widened. All around the table, forks paused. Napkins settled. The air tightened. "This is the last check you'll ever cash in my name, not because I resent what I've done, but because I refuse to spend another moment pretending I don't." Silence. Mom's face flushed. Blake's chair scraped. Angelica's jaw tensed. Then, Lois stood in the doorway holding 2 mugs of tea. Steam rising, warmth clothed around us. She approached, eyes gentle but fierce. She reached out. "I saw you," she said. "You were strong. I'm proud." I wanted to shake her hand. I did. Then I pulled back, ashamed I ever needed someone else's validation. But her presence, her words, they rooted me. "You deserve this truth," she continued, "not for me, but for both of us, for anyone who's ever felt erased." We stood there for a moment, lungs filling with cold air, hearts filling with something unfamiliar, recognition, not from them, from me. Inside, voices circled like tired ghosts. Mom cleared her throat. Angelica's hands clenched under the table. Uncle tried joking something about dessert, but the room had shifted. The mirror had cracked. My youngest cousin Tina caught my eye. She whispered, "You did good." I nodded. Tears trembled, but didn't fall. I stepped outside, snow crunching underfoot. The cold bit my cheeks. My phone buzzed in my jacket pocket. It was a message from a local reporter, eager for the real story. I stood there, looking back at the house, at its yellow windows and perfect decorations. I realized warmth had nothing to do with lights and masks anymore. Tomorrow, I decide which version of me the world sees. Chicago's skyline always looked the same from the passenger side window, but tonight it felt different. I sat quietly in the back of the car, hands clasped around a black clutch, heart trying to outrun the city lights. The gala venue came into view, red carpet, cameras, laughter cutting through the cold air. The car pulled up under the awning, flashbulbs blinked. A valet opened my door. I stepped out slowly. The dress I wore wasn't for style. It was statement, structured, deliberate, bold. I wanted it to say what I didn't need to anymore. I built this. Are you here for the gala or the speech tonight? A photographer called out. I paused just long enough to make eye contact, then walked past the ropes. No answer, just presence. Inside, banners hung from the ceiling, sponsor names printed in crisp white on navy. My eyes scanned automatically, even though I already knew. I wasn't there. Of course I wasn't. I felt the heat rise in my chest. Not rage, not hurt. Something in between. I smiled, smoothed my dress, walked in. I didn't make a scene, didn't ask for corrections. But people noticed. A woman leaned over and whispered, "Did you see? They forgot you." I nodded. I saw. Then it started. One man, someone I didn't recognize, stood and clapped. "For the design," he said. "For the courage." And another stood. Then another. Soon, the room was standing. I don't remember standing straighter, but I must have. My hands tingled. My heart stilled. Angelica sat 3 tables back. Her face froze. Mom blinked like she couldn't process the moment. I saw Blake shift in his seat. For once, I didn't want to disappear. During the intermission, she came. Angelica. Flawless makeup, chin lifted. "Caitlin," she said. I realize I was wrong. The air thickened. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just trying to keep things balanced." She paused, expecting something, maybe forgiveness on cue. I looked her in the eye. "Thank you. I accept that." A beat. But the truth I wanted people to see, it's already out. It doesn't need permission. She swallowed. Mom approached, hand light on my back, but didn't speak. Blake looked away like his drink had more answers than we did. A small group of reporters hovered close. One asked, "Caitlin, why now? Why speak up?" Another turned to Angelica. "How do you respond to the claims?" She answered like a press release. "Family is complicated. I love my sister." It landed flat. My phone buzzed again. Twitter, comments, videos, people I didn't know saying, "Finally." Truth has a face now. But there was no victory lap. Just a quiet knowing. A silent breath of air I'd never had room for before. They called me up for the closing speech. The lights dimmed. I walked the stairs slowly, holding the sides of the podium. The room settled. "I wasn't always brave," I started. "But truth isn't something you wait for. It's something you walk into." I got to the heart of it, what it meant to contribute without credit, to love without return, to choose dignity over silence. Just as I hit the final line, the mic sputtered. Then, cut. No sound, no voice, just silence. But the crowd didn't move. Someone started filming on their phone. Even with no sound, the message was loud. I woke before the sun did. The room was still, the kind of still that makes you notice your breath. I didn't move at first, just laid there and listened. To nothing. My phone buzzed softly on the nightstand, screen glowing with notifications. Mentions, messages, texts from numbers I hadn't seen in years. Some congratulated me. Others just said, "I saw." One from an old professor. "Finally, Caitlin." I opened the gallery on my phone and looked at the photo someone posted from last night's gala. The sponsor board, my name, right there, among them. No fanfare, no announcement. Just there, like it should have been all along. Beside my phone was something folded, small and white, a napkin swan. I stared at it. The corners crisp, carefully preserved, not torn, not discarded, just there, and I felt it, right in my chest. I whispered to the quiet room, I traded silence for truth. I traded fear for standing. I meant it. By mid-morning, the light outside was sharper, colder. My coffee had gone lukewarm. I sat on the couch, fingers hovering over the screen of my phone. I had made my peace in public, but some things needed to end in private, too. I started with the calls, blocked the numbers that only rang when they needed something. Then the donations, those anonymous gifts made in my name that were never credited. I emailed every sponsor on that list. My message was simple. Thank you, but I no longer wish to be associated with any platform that rewrites its own history. And then I typed one final note. To Mom, to Angelica. It read, "Don't call when you need backing. Not again. Not from me." I stared at the words for a moment, then hit send. A single car door shut outside, somewhere down the block. The sound of tires on wet pavement. Ordinary things. But inside, something had shifted, like a breath released after being held too long. Later that day, Lois came by. No announcement. Just takeout in one hand, the other holding something wrapped in tissue paper. She placed it on the kitchen table. Another napkin swan. This one was cleaner, firmer than the one beside my bed. Sewn to its base was a tag. Simple black stitching on white cloth. Venus Reese, architect of my silence. I didn't speak. Didn't need to. I ran my fingers over the folds. Remembered the first time I tried to fold one and was told it wasn't necessary. Remembered how it got replaced. Again. And again. But this time, I didn't pull it apart. I held it. Owned it. A few hours later, a local blog published a piece about the gala. The headline wasn't flashy. It just said, "The night Caitlin Reese spoke." The comments underneath surprised me. I stayed quiet for years at my church. Reading this helped. My mom did everything and never got credit. Caitlin, thank you. I was the swan too. I typed back once, softly. To all who've been the swan no one saw, you are seen now. Lois stood behind me, resting her hands on my shoulders. We didn't speak. Didn't have to. The sun was dipping now, but there was something warm in the air. The kind of warmth that comes not from heat, but from clarity. I stood, walked to the kitchen, lit a candle. The cinnamon scent blended with the lingering pine of a Christmas decoration I hadn't taken down yet. I folded a new napkin swan. Alone, slowly. For myself this time. Not as a symbol, just because. I carry my dignity now, I said to no one. Not in speeches, but in mornings like this. The folded swan sat on the table, catching the golden light through the window. I wasn't healed, but I was whole. Just as I poured a second cup of coffee, my phone lit up. A news alert. Family estate issues statement. We commit to transparency moving forward. I stared at it. Was it reconciliation or another performance? I didn't answer that. I just stood still, letting the morning arrive.